In a discovery that has captivated royal watchers, historians, and art collectors alike, a collection of previously unseen childhood doodles by Queen Elizabeth II is set to go up for auction after being found tucked away beneath a bed in a private estate clearance. The drawings, described as playful, imaginative, and surprisingly expressive, offer a rare glimpse into the early inner world of a monarch who would go on to become Britain's longest reigning sovereign. Long before the weight of the crown rested on her shoulders, the young Princess Elizabeth was, like many children, absorbed in crayons, pencils, and the small dramas of her own imagination. The cache of artwork was reportedly discovered during the sorting of personal belongings in a property once associated with a former member of the royal household staff. The sketchbooks and loose sheets had been carefully wrapped in tissue paper and stored inside a shallow wooden box, hidden beneath a narrow iron frame bed. Though initially dismissed as ordinary children's drawings, a closer look revealed initials, dates, and contextual references linking them unmistakably to the future queen. Auction specialists have described the find as extraordinary not for its technical brilliance, but for its intimacy. For a woman whose public life was defined by decorum, restraint, and constitutional duty, these drawings provide a striking counterpoint, spontaneous, whimsical, and at times cheekily humorous. A Childhood Before the Crown. Born in 1926, Princess Elizabeth Alexandra Mary did not initially expect to become queen. As the elder daughter of the Duke and Duchess of York, her early years were spent in relative privacy compared to what would follow. The abdication crisis of 1936 changed the course of her life, propelling her father onto the throne and transforming her into heir presumptive. The newly discovered drawings date largely from the early 1930s, when Elizabeth was between 5 and 9 years old. This period represents the last stretch of what historians often describe as her unshadowed childhood, before constitutional upheaval reshaped her destiny. The artwork includes sketches of horses, an enduring passion throughout her life, alongside imagined castles, domestic scenes, and carefully lettered captions. One drawing portrays a crowned figure standing atop a turret, waving to a crowd rendered as rows of smiling stick figures. Another shows a series of corgis with distinct personalities annotated in childlike handwriting. Experts believe that some of the doodles may have been created during stays at Windsor Castle, where the royal family frequently retreated. The castle's towers and battlements appear in several imaginative renderings, suggesting that its architecture left a lasting impression on the young princess. The discovery. The circumstances surrounding the discovery add an almost storybook quality to the find. The estate in question was undergoing routine clearance when workers encountered a small trunk wedged under a bed in a rarely used guest room. Inside, beneath folded linens and old correspondence, lay the wooden box containing the drawings. Initial curiosity turned to astonishment when a handwritten note surfaced bearing the name Lilibet, the affectionate family nickname used for Elizabeth in childhood. Handwriting comparisons and archival cross-checks have since strengthened the attribution. Auctioneers have confirmed that the collection will be handled by Sotheby's, which plans to feature the pieces in a dedicated sale of royal memorabilia later this year. While the individual drawings are modest in scale, most no larger than standard notebook paper, their historical resonance has already sparked intense interest. Specialists suggest the collection could fetch a significant sum, not only because of its royal provenance, but because it humanizes a figure often perceived as distant. Collectors are not simply buying a drawing, one expert noted. They are acquiring a fragment of private childhood from someone who lived almost her entire life in the public gaze. Themes in the artwork. Though clearly the work of a child, the drawings reveal recurring themes that would echo throughout Elizabeth's life. Horses and rural life. Several sketches depict ponies with flowing manes, riders and helmets, and rolling countryside landscapes. The Queen's lifelong devotion to equestrian pursuits is well documented, and these early renderings suggest that her affection for horses took root early. Even in crayon, the animals are given expressive eyes and dynamic posture. Domestic imagination. Some pieces portray tea parties and family gatherings, complete with labeled place settings. These scenes appear to blend fantasy and reality, with figures wearing crowns seated beside plainly dressed companions. The juxtaposition hints at a child navigating both ordinary family warmth and the unique expectations of royal identity. Architecture and ceremony. Turrets, flags, and marching lines of soldiers populate several pages. These may reflect the ceremonial pageantry that surrounded her upbringing, including trooping the color and other state occasions centered around Buckingham Palace. Even in simplified form, the structures are detailed, suggesting careful observation. Animals and companionship. Dogs, particularly corgis, feature prominently. Though Elizabeth would later become synonymous with the breed, these early doodles show that her affection predated adulthood. Some drawings include speech bubbles, giving the animals personalities and humorous commentary. A glimpse of personality. Biographers have long described Elizabeth as disciplined, dutiful, and measured in public. Yet accounts from family members and close aides frequently referenced her dry wit and understated humor. These drawings, though simple, reinforce that dimension of her character. One sketch depicts a tiny crown slipping sideways off a stick figure head, accompanied by a handwritten note. Too big. Scholars have interpreted this as charming self-awareness, perhaps even an unconscious premonition of the burdens she would one day bear. Another page shows a line of figures labeled "Very Important People," all drawn with exaggeratedly long noses. While playful, it suggests that even at a young age she observed and perhaps gently parroted the solemnity of formal gatherings. Art historians caution against overinterpretation. "We must remember these are the works of a child," one expert said. Their value lies not in hidden political symbolism, but in the universal qualities of childhood: curiosity, humor, and imagination. Royal memorabilia and market interest. The market for royal memorabilia has remained robust, particularly following the passing of Elizabeth in 2022. Items ranging from handwritten letters to personal accessories have achieved notable prices at auction. However, childhood artwork occupies a distinct category. Unlike official documents or state gifts, these drawings were never intended for public consumption. Their survival is itself remarkable. Auction analysts predict competitive bidding from private collectors, institutions, and possibly museums seeking to preserve aspects of royal heritage. The estimated range has not been publicly disclosed, but insiders suggest that the full collection could command a six-figure total. The historical context. To understand the emotional resonance of the drawings, it is essential to consider the era in which they were created. The 1930s were a period of global economic uncertainty and rising political tension. Within Britain, the abdication crisis of 1936 sent shockwaves through the monarchy. For the 10-year-old Elizabeth, the abdication of her uncle meant her father's unexpected ascent to the throne. The private world captured in crayon would soon intersect with the demands of constitutional duty. Some later drawings in the collection appear more structured, with neater lettering and clearer attempts at proportion. Observers speculate that these may date from the years immediately following her father's accession, when awareness of her future role likely began to crystallize. Private keepsakes and public legacy. The discovery raises broader questions about privacy and legacy. Should such intimate childhood artifacts enter the marketplace? Or do they belong in public archives? Representatives involved in the sale emphasize that the works were lawfully acquired and authenticated. They also note that auction exposure can ultimately lead to institutional acquisition, ensuring long-term preservation. For many, the appeal lies in the reminder that behind the ceremonial grandeur of state occasions stood a woman who once sprawled on the floor with crayons. Her later decades would be defined by audiences with prime ministers, Commonwealth tours, and moments of national crisis. Yet these drawings return us to a quieter, simpler time. Echoes of a lifetime. Elizabeth's love of Balmoral, her Scottish retreat at Balmoral Castle, endured throughout her reign. Though none of the newly discovered drawings explicitly depict the estate, the pastoral themes suggest that the countryside held early imaginative sway. Similarly, the precision and order visible in some sketches, figures aligned in tidy rows, flags drawn with careful symmetry, mirror the steadiness that later characterized her reign. Former aides have often spoken of her attention to detail, her punctuality, and her capacity to absorb briefing papers thoroughly. While it would be fanciful to draw a direct line from childhood doodles to constitutional mastery, there is something poetic in observing early signs of attentiveness. Public reaction. News of the auction has prompted widespread fascination. Social media platforms filled with commentary praising the tenderness of the discovery. Many users expressed delight at seeing a monarch remembered not solely for solemn duties, but for childlike creativity. Historians, meanwhile, have welcomed the addition to the broader tapestry of Elizabeth's life story. We have speeches, photographs, film footage, one commentator observed. But children's drawings reveal an unfiltered immediacy. Critics, however, caution against commercialization of deeply personal items. Some argue that such pieces should remain within archival institutions rather than private collections. The debate underscores the complex intersection of heritage, commerce, and memory. The auction ahead. The upcoming sale promises to be one of the most closely watched royal auctions in recent years. The drawings will be exhibited publicly for a limited preview period, allowing admirers to view them up close before bidding begins. Each piece will be individually cataloged, with descriptive notes contextualizing its likely date and subject matter. The auction house has indicated that select drawings may be offered as a single lot to preserve coherence, while others could be sold separately. Collectors anticipate spirited competition, driven not only by rarity, but by emotional resonance. In a world accustomed to polished portraits and official iconography, these humble sketches offer authenticity. A window into humanity. Ultimately, the significance of the discovery transcends monetary value. It invites reflection on the universality of childhood. Even those born into extraordinary circumstances share in simple acts of creativity. For Elizabeth, whose reign spanned 7 decades, public identity often overshadowed personal narrative. The crown, the speeches, the ceremonies, all were visible markers of duty. Less visible were the private moments of imagination that shaped her early years. These doodles do not rewrite history. They do not alter constitutional records or redefine political events. Instead, they add texture. They soften the edges of formality with crayon lines and penciled smiles. As the auction approaches, anticipation builds not merely for the outcome of bidding but for the stories these pages continue to tell. Within their colored strokes lies the laughter of a child who could not yet know the path ahead. In rediscovering these drawings, the world glimpses something quietly profound, that before the crown, before the throne, there was simply a girl named Lilibet, drawing her world as she saw it, one pony, one castle, one smiling figure at a time.